as I told you last week, the likelihood of this deal being done before September 1st is not likely. And I only say that because Patrick Beverley is on hold. He cannot contractually be traded until the end of August, so about another 10 days. I think that is the earliest, from what I've been told, that this trade could go down. But Friday into Saturday, we got new news about what the Jazz and the Knicks are doing, and they are looking for a third team because the Jazz and the Knicks have agreed that they can't make this deal on their own. And the reason they can't make this deal on their own is because Danny Ainge has held firm on his asking price. And Jake, I think Danny Ainge has done a very good job of sticking to his guns here and not taking less than his original asking price for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Danny Ainge is doing his job here. I think that a lot of executives around the league would have, compromised, if you will. They would have given in, if you will. And I think Danny has done a great job on that, as I've said many times in the past. But I think what's interesting is just, what we see, what we see and hear about this trade versus what we see and hear, from Donovan Mitchell and his camp and like the videos he's putting out. And I think a lot of people are noticing the fact that Donovan Mitchell seems, as happy as one could be during the offseason, putting in his work, playing in pro-ams, doing all that, but then he's on a boat with a DJ set, having a great time. Like, Donovan Mitchell is just doing him, and I think that Don is in a place where he understands no matter what uniform he's wearing, he has to come out and have one of those years. He's got to have a career year, a make-a-point kind of year. And so for Donovan, I don't think that this whole dynamic that a lot of people bring up of like Don being annoyed or somehow perturbed or unnerved or whatever, feeling a negative type of way about this trade conversation, I don't think that exists. I think Donovan understands exactly what's happening here, which is, people are calling Danny Ainge and saying, hey, what would it take? And Danny's giving him a certain price, and he's not going to come off of that. And I honestly think that Donovan Mitchell is okay with that. Donovan understands, hey, this is a business. If someone wants to give you some ridiculous price, then I'm cool with that. It's fine. I don't think that this is a situation where Donovan is salty or upset or anything like that. And that's why I say, and have been saying, for Danny Ainge, there is no rush. There is no force pushing him to make this deal. So when we hear, hey, they need to add a third team to get this deal done, my reaction to that was, that makes perfect sense. Because what does that tell us? Danny's not coming off the price. The Knicks, understand that they can't pay 7 first-round picks or whatever in players to get this deal done because that leaves them nowhere to go. So the natural path is a third team. I don't think this really changes the situation at all. I just think this is what they've been working to for, however long this has been going on now, 6-8 weeks.
Well, I think, excuse my voice this morning, I think what is pretty clear is they need a third team here. I think this makes a lot of sense. I think I agree with you 100%. I don't think the Jazz are desperate to trade Donovan Mitchell. I think if they had their druthers, they probably would not. But I don't think you can walk away from the kind of compensation that they are, potentially going to get if they make a Donovan Mitchell deal. And, frankly, I think so much has been written over the last week that just isn't true. And you hear so many rumors and you hear so much innuendo about who called who. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? They have talked regularly. You hear all this rigmarole about how they didn't talk for a month. I can tell you that's just factually not true. We've reported since this first came out, which I think, looking back at the channel, we first talked about this on the 6th of July, that the Knicks have been calling the Jazz for over a year on Donovan Mitchell. This is not new interest, right? But the thing that I think is very clear is that the Jazz and the Knicks have had very, very deep, long conversations about how in love they are with each other making a Donovan Mitchell deal.
Right.
And that they realize, hey, there's a deal to be done here.
Yep.
But the right structure is likely not in place for a 1-to-1 deal.
Yeah.
That much is very clear because Leon Rose is not giving up 6 picks. I thought it was pretty funny over the weekend that the New York media jumped on, a report that said, oh, Danny hasn't come off his his original trade demand, and the Knicks are frustrated. And we've been reporting that for over a month on this show, that the Knicks were frustrated. There's no doubt about it. Danny Ainge has never acquiesced off of his demand for 6 first-round picks. Danny Ainge has said from the jump, Grimes has to be in this deal. Well, the thing is, the Knicks have said, we're not giving you 6 first-round picks, and we're not giving you Grimes.
Right.
And I think that's why you have to find a third team. I don't know who that third team's going to be because, frankly, I don't see that teams like the Lakers, who I know have tried to get involved in this Donovan Mitchell deal, in that they'd like to be the third team. The Lakers have nothing to offer.
Facts.
They're not going to give up their 2 future first-round picks because they want to make a Kyrie Irving deal. So they just are. I mean, Talen Horton-Tucker is not pushing anybody over the line. That's the thing that stands out to me most here is I think it's going to be really difficult to find a third team to complete this deal.
Yeah, and why would the Utah Jazz take on the responsibility of buying Russell Westbrook out? Because certainly he would have to be involved in this situation. So to me, what's happening right now is Leon Rose is having to go around the league and call teams and see who has what and who might be interested and whatever. He's doing the legwork to see if he can find a third team. But yeah, teams like the Lakers or teams like the Celtics or any of these teams that are contenders every single year and are really tight as far as cap space is concerned and money is concerned are probably not going to be viable options. You need to find a team that, I'm not saying they got to be a bottom feeder, but they have to have some flexibility. They got to have some value. And usually what that looks like is a mid-table or lower table team. That's what those teams have. They have capital to do some deals. So it'll be interesting to see how this comes together, but I just thought it was really interesting that, as you said, that the New York media kind of rode this train of like, hey, Danny pissed off Leon Rose, and that's why they stopped talking, and there's all this drama, when really there's not a lot of drama. They have been talking for like a year. Like, this is not something new. And now we're evolved into, hey, we need a third team.
Well, and furthermore, I would say this goes back to the trade deadline. Certainly, I mean, in January, I was told the Knicks really started pushing for a Donovan Mitchell deal. They wanted to get that deal done at the deadline. The Jazz simply haven't had an appetite to trade Donovan. And I think they had been committed, as we had told you back in December, they had been committed to building around Donovan Mitchell. They had been committed to trading Rudy Gobert's contract, building around Donovan Mitchell. And frankly, I don't think that has changed.
Yeah.
The only thing that's changed here is that Leon Rose was willing to put in substantially more capital, both in draft picks and in humans. And I think the frustration comes in when Danny Ainge just isn't a guy that's fun to negotiate with. He is a very difficult negotiator. Danny's notorious for that. And multiple people around the NBA have told me, hey, this deal's not close. And I want to make that very clear. This deal's not close today. I think as the next 10 days go on, that's when you're going to find out how much Leon Rose is willing to pay for Donovan Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
If he is able to put together a package, and this is on Leon Rose, by the way, if Leon's willing to do the work to go out and put together a package, I think this deal's done. If you can get Danny Ainge a minimum of 4 first-round picks, and they're going to have to be unprotected. It's not a thing where it is qualified or, top 10 protected. No.
Yeah.
These are 4 unprotected first-round picks, 2 more first-round picks to go with that. And I think you're going to have to find him a young star. You're going to have to put a guy like a Quentin Grimes into this deal. And if it's not Quentin Grimes, it's going to have to be somebody else's Quentin Grimes.
Yeah.
And that's why I say a third team is going to be very difficult to come by here. Because if you look at the teams that you have heard about, and whether that be Toronto, I mean, the guy you want in Toronto is Scotty Barnes, and by all accounts, Kevin Durant is not getting Scotty Barnes.
Y'all feel me?
I don't see any way that Scotty Barnes is a chip that comes from a third team to finish a trade.
Yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever. So you start looking at a Washington, who we've heard about. Washington as a third team is interesting, but does Kyle Kuzma put the cherry on top of a Donovan Mitchell trade? I just don't think he does. And the reason I say that is not that Kyle's a bad player, but he's wildly inconsistent, and you know who he is as a player, and he is paid. That's the other thing here, and it brings you back to this conversation about R.J. Barrett. What is the appetite of Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz to outlay cash on a guy like an R.J. Barrett who is eligible for a max extension on his rookie deal? The answer is I don't know. And I have been told routinely that the Jazz don't want to pay R.J. Barrett. And I think if the Jazz are going to take R.J. Barrett, I don't think that means that they're willing to pass on a Quentin Grimes. I, in fact, think that if you're taking R.J. Barrett and you're Danny Ainge, I think you're not holding on to him long term. In fact, I think you would have to have Quentin Grimes in that deal. So the Jazz and the Knicks have progressed to, hey, we know we can't do this deal 1v1. We need to add a third team.
Yeah.
And I think they are both like-minded in that. I think that if Danny can get, 6 first-round picks, 4 unprotected, this deal's going to happen. If Danny cannot, this deal's not going to happen. It just makes too much sense for the Jazz to hold on to Donovan Mitchell, and it makes no sense at all for the Jazz to sell low on Donovan Mitchell. Let's say 3 first-round picks. Is 3 first-round picks really, replacement value for a guy in Donovan Mitchell that most people believe is going to come out and have a 30-point season?
Well, and who is he for the Utah Jazz? I think that's the other thing here that's important. Who is Donovan Mitchell to the Utah Jazz? I got news for you. He's very important, right? Like, Donovan Mitchell is the only thing you have going for you in current day. It's not like, some of these other teams that have, like, if we were talking about Jaylen Brown, you could say, yeah, hey, 3 first-round picks is fine because you have Jason Tatum. The Utah Jazz don't have another Donovan Mitchell. So that's why it's got to be 4 unprotected. That's why it has to be 6 overall and a couple of players, because you're asking the Jazz to give away their crowning jewel of a player so that you can go and do what you want to do. But I'd also say that it's not good business by the Knicks to do this deal on their own. And I'm glad to hear Leon Rose saying that. Like, it doesn't make sense for us to give up the farm to go and get Donovan Mitchell when we know we're going to need more to go and contend for an NBA championship. So I think the Knicks also deserve credit here for being smart and not taking that big jump when that big jump only gets you so far, which is what you've been saying for a while now, Well,
I'm very much a realist about players in this league. And my honest opinion on Donovan Mitchell is he's a superstar in the making, but he's not winning the Knicks a championship with the way that team is currently constructed.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this at length, but Donovan Mitchell, if you take away a Quentin Grimes, if you take away an R.J. Barrett, either one of those two, Donovan Mitchell doesn't bring you a championship. I don't know even if you add Donovan Mitchell to that team with R.J. Barrett and Quentin Grimes.
Mm-hmm.
And, Julius Randle really is the odd fit there. But in that group in total, that's not a championship caliber club.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense, as we said last week, to give away 4 first-round picks, then to have to go and make another trade on top of that where you're going to give away the rest of those assets. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to overpay for a guy in Donovan Mitchell who very much is at a tipping point in his career, and you don't want to be the proving ground on the wrong side of it. That's too much like Isaiah Thomas ran the Knicks.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're the Knicks, you don't want to do that deal. If you're Danny Ainge, I think you are in a position where you don't have to trade Donovan Mitchell. You know that he's a guy that with what you got in return for Rudy Gobert and what you're going to get in return for Bojan Bogdanovic, and my sources tell me they are absolutely trading Patrick Beverley. If you are able to get return on those guys, you're in a position where a year from now, you can be competing at the top of the Western Conference. So there is no urgency, which is the other problem in this deal. There's no urgency for either side to make this trade happen. So I know that fans tend to obsess over, well, you called him or he called you, or, hey, who's going to win this trade?
That's every day.
There is no winning this trade. Somebody's going to lose. And in my estimation, when this trade gets made, and I think there is, I move to the more likely percentage of 65-35, this trade does not happen. I think 65% Donovan Mitchell stays with the Jazz. And I can tell you, Jazz sources have told me repeatedly they are planning to have him at training camp. They are operating under the idea that Donovan Mitchell is going to be in training camp with the Utah Jazz. That's a win for the Jazz. That's not a loss for the Knicks. They still have 86 million first-round picks. They still have all that young talent. Nobody needs to make this trade. Nobody needs to make this trade. Understand that that's an important distinction to make. You take such a risk when you send out this kind of bounty for a guy in Donovan Mitchell who, frankly, I think is in a prove-it year.
Yeah.
This is an incredibly important season for Don. A year from now, I'd be much more willing to trade 4 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell. I'm not so willing to do that now. That's kind of where I come down on it.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I absolutely think that's fair. And I think that, again, we all expect Donovan Mitchell to come out and do great things, but he's got to go and do those great things first. And that's a very important distinction. And I think that's why this is taking a long time, because
this is why.
This is why. At the end of the day, with all due respect, this is why it's taking a long time.
Well, let's see. Is Kurt Myers? Oh, Kurt Myers is the first one in today.
There you go. See?
Oh, it's not Kurt, though. It's Steve Peterson.
Steve Peterson.
Not to slander you.
Right,
Kurt.
right.
Tanner Plummer says, good morning. Spencer D says, saw, dudes.
Spencer D.
He's the saw dude guy. Hey, there's Steve Peterson, with all due respect.
Steve.
Spencer D says, how's the cut going? I'm working out while listening to the show. Dude! I got to tell you, cut's going great. All new low time weight for me on Saturday morning, which I was thrilled about. I only weigh myself once a week. And frankly, the other thing I did when you're trying to lose weight and you're cutting, and we're going through this casuals getting cut, one of the things that I did over the weekend that's very dangerous is I went clothes shopping because we're going on this trip to Hawaii. Dude, it was awesome. I pulled out a bunch of clothes out of my closet that have not fit in a long time. They're all they're huge on me. Like, I have these really nice camouflage, camo cargo shorts that are just so comfortable.
Yes.
They did not fit anymore. And so when I picked up during the pandemic, I gained 1,500 pounds. Most of it was honestly, most of it was cock weight, but it's fine. On, man. Anyway, the point is, I put those cargo pants back on and they fit great. They actually were too big. I need to wear a belt with those. So I was super excited about that. Mm-hmm. So the cut's going good. How is the cut going for you?
I'm still fat. I'm fat. I'm fat.
M. Alvarez says, good morning. Dave Heath says, good morning, fellas. Connor Tulin says, episode. Okay. He says, here comes the "We told you RJ was involved" episode. I don't know if RJ Barrett's involved or not.
Why would this be the "We told you RJ was involved" episode? I don't understand where that's coming from.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty consistent that the Jazz are out on 2 players. The Jazz are out on Julius Randle. They have made that very clear, unequivocally. The Jazz have no interest in Julius Randle. And the only hesitation the Jazz have with RJ Barrett is they got to extend him. And I don't know. One of the interesting conversations is the situation with the Utah Jazz owner, Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith did something that was very interesting on Friday. Mm-hmm. He added a minority owner, a silent partner, to the organization. Now, they say that this was to help Ryan Smith and his group bring another professional franchise to Utah. But I'm not sure that I'm buying that. Mm-hmm. Hear me clearly on this. I do not think that Ryan Smith is struggling financially. I do not. I have been told that they want for nothing, that the Jazz are thriving financially. Okay, that's great. But one thing is very clear. The company and the silent partner, it's not like Jimmy Bob from Tooele kicked in $50 million and he's a silent partner. Mm-hmm. The details on this company that Ryan Smith added as a silent partner are kind of interesting, Jake.
Yeah, so the name of this company is Arctos Sports Partners. Their managing and controlling members are based in Texas. They went to TCU. You can find them on their website. But what's more interesting, just the first thing that's on their website. Like, I'm not talking about going digging through their website. The first thing on their website, this is their message. Quote, providing thoughtful liquidity and structured growth capital solutions to sports franchise owners. Notice it doesn't say, hey, we're trying to, buy, shares so we can start new teams or we can grow markets. Notice it doesn't say that. What does it say? Again, providing thoughtful liquidity and structured growth capital solutions to sports franchise owners. Okay. Hey, maybe that's just me reading too much into that, right? So then what do? On their website, they have a bunch of tabs like every website does. I go to their strategy tab just to see, how do they operate? What are they trying to do? And they have 4 sections to the strategy tab. One of the sections is named Attractive Opportunity. Under that, you've got 2 bullet points, one of which says opportunity to provide liquidity and growth capital to a historically inefficient market. So when I read that, combined with what I read first on the homepage, that says to me, hey, we're looking for markets that aren't big yet, and we're looking for opportunities to give owners in those small markets, if you will, more operating capital by bringing them liquidity. So no, Ryan Smith isn't struggling for money, but my opinion is, based on this and based on what we heard and based on the fact that you're bringing in the UFC and you're doing more events and everything, is that, hey, you have this valuation. You are a billionaire. You have this money. Money's not your problem. Liquidity is your problem.
Yes.
That's your issue. Your money's tied up. It's not flexible right now. That is what I think is going on with Ryan Smith. That is what I think the whole point of this Arctos sports management thing is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's something to watch very closely, because I think it is smart business to always be liquid as possible. I think everybody agrees with that. But I also think it's smart business to get your financial house in order. And you just traded the largest contract you have on your books. You didn't do a TV deal. This uniform launch didn't go off as you had hoped. I'm just interested to see, how is the money going to be spent over the next 18 months? Let's really, and I know 18 months seems like a long time. In financial circles, it is not. Let's really pay attention to how Ryan Smith and the Utah Jazz go about their business. And I think, I'm from what I understand, there's some pretty major business announcements coming from the Jazz here over the next probably 4 weeks.
Yeah.
That are going to be interesting. And we'll see exactly how all of that plays out. But I don't think that Ryan Smith is in financial trouble. But I got to tell you, I've heard it from 3-4 different NBA sources wondering why, several different things were done several different ways.
Yeah.
And maybe this explains it. I think it's exactly right when you look at Arctos and you look at their philosophies and their stated modus operandi and the way they do business and where they spread their cash around and how it's to be used.
Thoughtful liquidity and structured growth capital solutions to sports franchise owners.
Which is not to say bringing another professional franchise to Utah. I don't know that those two things work together. Did you inject cash into this group so that the group could afford a MLB expansion franchise, an NHL expansion franchise, to build a new arena that could house hockey and basketball, to build a new stadium that could house a Major League Baseball team? That doesn't seem like a cash injection would quite get that done.
No.
That's not what this sounds like to me, right? So if I look at Arctos and I look at the way they do business and I look at Ryan Smith and I look at where he is, I mean, he's got a minority interest in RSL. He's got, something doesn't quite add up.
Dude, it doesn't add up
exactly.
to bringing another sports franchise here, which is what, everyone in the media was saying. Oh, well, he sold his shares so that they could bring a baseball team here or whatever. And that does not make sense to me. It just doesn't, in the current climate with where things are at, you don't go out and buy an NBA franchise and then on top of that, buy a minority share in RSL, then to go and expand into a third team or a third opportunity, a year and a half, 2.5 years in, like young into your ownership of that NBA team.
Because when did he make his RSL inject? When did he buy into RSL? Several months ago now, it seems like. So are you telling me this add another professional?
January 6, 2022.
Yeah, okay, so 6 months ago.
Yeah.
8 months ago now.
Yeah.
So are you telling me that you just started thinking about here in the last 2-3 months adding another professional sports franchise to Utah? The math doesn't add up here.
Yeah.
The timeline doesn't add up here. And I think this is something to watch very quickly, because one thing that we know, Ryan Smith is not dumb.
No.
Ryan Smith is an operator. He is a calculated businessman. And I'm curious. I don't feel like this is a thing where he's over leveraged. I feel like something else is happening.
And, the other thing that stood out to me, and again, I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole here, but this was one other thing that really stood out to me on the homepage of Arctos' website. It says, our mission is to partner with owners and leagues to increase liquidity and financial flexibility for ownership groups using a collaborative thought partner approach. So, hey, we're not gonna come in and dictate to you how to do things. But we are going to give you advice based on what we see and based on what you're asking us to do and how much liquidity you're looking for. So that's why I say it's not as if the conversation isn't, hey, is Ryan Smith broke or is Ryan Smith somehow in financial trouble? That's not the conversation. The conversation is, why does Ryan Smith need more liquidity right now? What is he trying to do with that liquidity? That's the conversation. And to me, it's interesting timing with the All-Star game coming. You're spending all this money. It makes me wonder, is there a plan where, you didn't have it necessarily in your budgeting, I guess, for the All-Star game, and that's why you need liquidity? I don't know, man. It's all speculation. But my point just is this is not about adding a team to Salt Lake. This is about Ryan Smith and this ownership group has a goal for what they're trying to do, and they wanted to add liquidity to accomplish that goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that Ryan Smith is a calculated guy. He is he's a Utah through and through.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. What's up, brother?
Brother
says, I agree with your comments if I'm a Jazz fan, but I'm a Knicks fan, and I don't know what happens next, and I feel sorry for them. They need to figure out between the trade and we trust and that it would be perfect. I don't know what you mean. Tanner Plummer says, are the Knicks fan... Tanner? Okay, Tanner's stirring the drink now in the comments. Okay. Cash Out James, good morning to you. Mr. E, the Jazz having cap space means nothing. No one is signing with Utah.
Donnie, please.
Do we really have to explain this again?
Well, the one thing we didn't touch on with the Ryan Smith thing, and this comment kind of plays to it, is Salt Lake a major market? Is Salt Lake a major metro opportunity?
Oh, I think it is for sure. I think one of the things that we know is that one of the reasons that players like playing here is because there are big business opportunities. I mean, there is no doubt about that with Silicon Slopes here, with the billions of dollars in tech that are here, like the apps, the gaming world.
Adobe!
Like being able to buy, esports teams and all of the things that we've seen athletes come to Utah to do. I mean, there's definitely opportunities here. I think there's no doubt that the best way to get talent here is to trade for players. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at no one is signing in Utah,
I disagree with that.
It just shows how naive Cash Out James and people outside of Utah are. I think that's I think that's very clear. Caleb, good morning to you. What's the obsession with Quentin Grimes? Well, the obsession with Quentin Grimes is he's a hell of a young player, and he's really talented.
And if you're giving up Donovan Mitchell, you need a young stud back.
Yeah, I think that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for certain. There is no doubt about that. CAA Mafia says, what star of Mitchell caliber stars Pat through a rebuild at the age of 25? Okay. No one. A Spider will make it known closer to training camp. That what? If you're inferring that Donovan's going to demand a trade, you're crazy. That's just not, there would be no reason for him to do that now. His value is low. His value is not high. So demanding a trade when you're low makes very little sense. Why did Kevin Durant demand a trade now? Well, because one, he's got value, and two, he wants to win championships.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell's at a completely different place. Donovan Mitchell doesn't have a ton of value right now, and Donovan Mitchell has to prove that he's a star in this league. So the idea that now would be the right time for him to do that is crazy. I mean, it's just not. It doesn't matter. Brother says, I know that the Jazz will probably agree to trade Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks. Besides, the third team will be a perfect fit. Could be a perfect to rebuild and trust the team. I just don't. The problem is, you can't go to New York and expect to win a championship with the Knicks. I just don't see. You're not. If you're the Knicks and you make a Donovan Mitchell trade, and I know I just said this, but not to be redundant, you're not winning a championship.
Yeah, and they've all but said that as well. I mean, it's been well known that that's why they don't want to trade like the whole farm to get Donovan Mitchell because they know they got to make another deal.
Scott Howard says, I may sound like I'm whining, but my passion for the NBA is as low as it's ever been. Player moves teams so much and malcontents like Katie and Harden. Why care about a team that doesn't care about themselves?
Well, I think that this burnout factor is real in the NBA right now. I mean, I think we've had your point there was Scott. I think is well taken. Like I think that the Durant thing has a lot of burnout. I'm burned out on it. I mean, I've been saying. I mean, frankly, we've had probably close to 10 conversations this offseason about how like we need something to happen. We need some movement. Like Kevin Durant and really Danny Ainge kind of wrecked the trade cycle in this offseason with the Gobert deal.
I would agree with that.
And then you combine that with the Durant stuff. Like, there is a lot of burnout. And I think, so you take what's happened now and you stack that on top of the bubble. And then, just everything that's sort of transpired, it just brings this sense of like, damn, like these guys are getting paid like hundreds of millions of dollars to play basketball. Like, why do they always have to be upset and be malcontents? I totally get why you feel that way, man. The good news is college football kicks off in, 8 days or whatever it is, or 7. I can't remember the number, but that's the good news. That's the silver lining here.
Yeah. Kenai Johnson, good morning to you. He says, so if the Jazz do get RJ and have to extend him, what's the number you think? Because it sounds like RJ is in a prove-it year also. Is RJ in a prove-it year?
I mean, I think when you're what did we say he was?
22?
22. I mean, when you're 22 and you're trying to get a max and you're trying to do things in the league and make noise, I think
you're already averaging 20 points a game. Like, I don't know that you're in a prove-it deal.
I think you're in your growth curve. You're in this place where you have to continue to get better. Like, 20 points a night no longer is good enough if you're RJ Barrett, just with where you want to go.
But the Knicks, the Jazz, whoever, somebody's going to give him a max extension. That's not even a doubt.
This is the DeAndre Ayton conversation. DeAndre Ayton is not well liked, but he's a hell of an offensive player. And so look how the Suns handled that. They made him go and hit free agency before they would sign the qualifying sheet. So that's why I say, like, someone's going to pay him. You're exactly right. I just don't think that Danny Ainge wants to be laying out that type of capital in their process. And that's why
I would agree with that.
That's why this whole thing about Knicks fans being pissed off that we said that RJ was not, great for the Jazz and that RJ isn't an elite player yet. Like, it's not that we hate RJ Barrett, but you just have to look at the Jazz situation and understand that paying him a max extension just doesn't make sense.
Yep, I would agree. Rhett Smith says, I think Ryan Smith making this deal is attractive to MLB, NHL, or NFL by saying I have the money to build world-class facilities. Well, the way you do that is you build world-class facilities. And I think it'll be interesting to see, like, the cash injection that Ryan Smith is going to get from the NBA and is getting from the NBA to improve the Vivint Arena for the All-Star game. I mean, those are upgrades that are happening there, right? So, because the NBA comes in and they essentially say, okay, if you want the All-Star game, we need to have X, Y, and Z in your building. And so they inject a little bit of money, the Jazz inject a little bit of money, and the building gets an upgrade. The question is the money that Ryan Smith got from Arctos, is that build an NFL stadium money? Is that build an MLB stadium money? Because we're talking about billions of dollars to do that.
Yeah.
And that we're talking about billions in dollars of debt load to do that. If I'm Ryan Smith, am I really looking to take on more debt? I'm probably not.
Not yet.
And my guess is maybe the only thing that makes sense is if he's doing this for something down the road. If that's why he's doing this. I think there's so much we don't know because Ryan's not talking.
Because it's all part of the plan.
And I think that's why he's not talking.
Yeah.
Avery Forbes says, what could a Westbrook to the Jazz trade look like? I still maintain that that's not an option. I mean, Russell Westbrook doesn't have a home on the Jazz roster.
No.
He just does
He'll
not.
never put a Jazz jersey on.
In any way, shape, or form. I mean, if you're trading for Russell Westbrook, you're buying him out. And does a team that's looking to, is it a team that could be cash strapped looking to buy out Russell Westbrook?
No.
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
But you see what I mean? Like, whether it's Westbrook or RJ Barrett, like these certain players that don't really fit into what the Jazz are trying to do, that's why the deal is taking its time. It's not that... I think we've graduated from Danny's asking for too much to, hey, how are we going to get this done? And that's what I think the conversation is. That the conversation has changed a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of the more interesting things, we need 3 weeks. Give me 3 weeks. And I think when this deal goes down, our reaction to it, I think will be very interesting. Because I don't see a whole lot of scenarios where I positively react to a Donovan Mitchell trade. Unless it's an absolute landslide. And I just think I've heard too much good about Leon Rose to believe that Leon's paying 6 first-round picks. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't. Steve Johnson says, I still hold that once I heard the Millers sold the Jazz, that they could be on the way out of Utah. Not in the near term, mind you, but it still didn't give me a warm feeling. Ryan Smith is not selling the Jazz. He is not moving the Jazz out of Utah. That would be the shocking, stunning. And by the way, what NBA owners approving that?
Yeah.
You look at the situation when Sacramento tried to leave, and they tried to relocate to one of 1,000 places with the crap bag Maloofs, and you look at the swell of support and the fan base and the noise that was made there, and they ultimately were not allowed to move that team. There would be, do fans in Utah support the Jazz?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Overwhelming.
Remember, they're second in the league in viewership, just behind the Warriors.
They watch games. They come to games. They buy things. They spend their money on the team. I mean, it's not like nobody shows up. It's not like there's not a population here.
Yeah.
You have no argument to say that the Jazz need to be moved.
And by the way, Ryan's a Utah guy. Remember that.
Yeah, there's no way that happens.
Yeah.
There is just no way that happens at all. Tanner says, speaking of RSL. All right, let's move on. Ruff's official says Smith owns a profitable business. He bought the Jazz, the Bees, and a stake in RSL. He is also looking to buy another pro team. I doubt he's hurting financially. I don't think he's hurting financially.
Again, be really clear on what we said. Be very, very, very clear on what we said. We didn't say he was hurting financially. We never said that.
No.
What I'm saying is that when you bring in liquidity, that tells me...
This kind of liquidity.
Yeah, like when you go third party and you're trying to bring in some liquidity, that tells me you're trying to do something, and it doesn't fit in necessarily with where your financial assets are right this second. So meaning, not that he's strapped, but liquidity versus something being held up by a current deal that you're in. Okay, well, if your cash isn't liquid, that means you can't do something. So you're going to partner with people because, hey, Ryan Smith is a tech billionaire. Just not sure if you're aware of this. He knows people. You're going to partner with some people to get it done.
But the Arctos thing doesn't make any sense that's to buy a third professional team.
Yeah, that doesn't add up to me.
Doesn't, because it is billions of dollars.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm happy to,
So here's the thing.
Yes, go ahead.
So my thought, as far as the third team thing is concerned, that concept around this cash influx, this liquidity piece. So you're telling me that you went to a third party company in Arctos to get what? $4 billion? Probably.
Yeah.
I mean that's what we're talking about for a third team. You're talking about like $3-4 billion. So, okay, well, Ryan's not going to do it alone. Ryan's going to partner with some people to start a new team. Okay, I could kind of see that because then, hey, you'd only need, I don't know, $1 billion probably if you're Ryan Smith. To be a full share owner, you need just over 50%, obviously. So you would need, a certain number. But that's why I say it's kind of a stretch to me to think that Ryan Smith would want to go that path with owning something new. Like, Ryan Smith is not a guy who, when he wants to control something and own it outright, he goes and gets money from someone else to pay for what he wants to do. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What you would do in that case is you would own the Jazz for probably 5 to 7 years before you started laying out that kind of cash. So that's why I say the third team thing to me doesn't make a lot of sense. But hey, again, I'm not well informed on what he's trying to do. This is speculation based on what Arctos does and based on Arctos's, mission statement, essentially.
The Denver Broncos just sold for $4.65 billion. The down payment on that is $1,395,000,000.
Just a down payment.
Just to have a conversation about buying the team. It's $1 billion just for an NFL team. Like, you're not... the Arctos thing is not to buy an NFL franchise. It's not. I could see, like, look at Major League Baseball. Here's the problem with Major League Baseball. You've got a line of cities that are far more qualified just because they've been in the pipeline for so much longer.
Yeah.
If you look at Charlotte, who's got billionaires on top of billionaires that have been trying to get a team to Charlotte for a generation. You look at Tacoma, Washington. Tacoma, Washington has been trying. You look at Spokane, has been trying. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is, I think the Pacific Northwest is viewed as a small market, and they're not going to have two teams there. That does not make a lot of sense. But you look at the other markets in this country that have been looking for another professional baseball team, I just don't think that it is Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
I don't. I honestly could see another NHL team here. I could see bringing an NHL team to Salt Lake City. That feels like the most probable thing to me.
Yeah.
NHL or Major League Baseball. That feels the most probable. Because with the NHL, you have Denver with the Avalanche, you have Vegas with the Knights. Like, it makes sense.
Well,
like,
I think the Denver dynamic is a huge thing here, right? Like, Denver has everything. And that's what I think a lot of people do. They say, well, it's Denver. You've got the Broncos, you've got the Avalanche, you've got the Nuggets, you've got the Rockies. You've got all these teams. So why do you need teams in Salt Lake? Right? Like, Salt Lake is right next to Denver, isn't it? That's what I think people do. And that's why I think Salt Lake doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. And I also think when we're talking Major League Baseball, I think this whole dynamic in Tampa around the Rays and them moving and, that whole situation is also interesting.
No, friends. It's the Arizona Coyotes. To me, that's what makes the most sense. Do you guys know what the Arizona Coyotes value is? It's $400 million. If you have Ryan Smith and the Salt Lake market that I think does a great job, like, the Grizzlies are a great organization. The Utah Grizzlies, the ECHL team, which is essentially AA hockey, to the Colorado Avalanche, right? The community does a great job supporting that team. Like, the fan base that the Grizzlies have is not the biggest fan base in hockey, but it's certainly a passionate one. If you brought the Arizona Coyotes to Salt Lake City, it's life-changing for hockey in this town.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $400 million.
Which really is not that much.
You can afford to do that. They do not have a home in Arizona. I look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. Like, those are the franchises that we're talking about. Tampa Bay, the problem with Tampa is they've been trying to sell or move that team for how long?
Mm-hmm.
And it has not happened. And it tells me that there's not an appetite there to do that. I honestly think the two most available franchises in baseball, are probably the Arizona Diamondbacks, although I don't know that Ken Kendrick would want to sell. He's the owner of the Diamondbacks. But I think that's absolutely one. It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
I think Tampa and Arizona are the two most available.
Yeah.
And I think when I look at the Kraken now being in Seattle, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that the Arizona Coyotes are the available franchise in hockey. There's just no doubt about that to me.
Yeah, $400 million is a very attainable number. That's just not a lot of money.
And by the way, that's only if you buy them outright. But if you partner with that owner who's a very savvy businessman, the guy that owns the Coyotes, very savvy businessman. If you partner with that owner and you become a minority owner, like 49.9%, and you build a new state-of-the-art facility for the Jazz and the Coyotes, I think you're living well. I absolutely think you're living well.
Yeah.
Call me crazy. I think hockey here would thrive. I think hockey here, NHL hockey in Salt Lake City, I think would absolutely thrive. I think it would. A lot of people have asked me, hey, do you think hockey would surpass RSL? In a moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely in a moment. The hockey community in Salt Lake City is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. So I think when you look at Ryan Smith, this is not an unintelligent man. He is a wily, savvy operator, a very smart guy.
Yeah.
I do not think he's in financial trouble. I could more buy into the fact that he is struggling for cash. Liquidity is the exact right word that I would use.
Yeah.
Hockey in this town would be bananas.
Yeah.
I think it would do very, very well. Very, very well. All right. Steve Peterson says, come on. It's not MLB or NHL. It's the NFL. He's bringing the NFL here. It's just so expensive. I mean, my God. It's going to, I can't even think of a franchise that you would move here.
I don't think this town, I think this town is so driven by college football that I'm not sure that an NFL team would outperform the college football teams here unless that team was winning a lot. You'd have to be playoff team caliber team to outperform the college teams here, in my opinion. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. But I just think you have a perfect setup with college football here.
Yeah, and I don't know. Man, that's tough. I think the NFL would thrive here.
It thrives everywhere. I mean, it would make money. That's not really even a conversation. It would make money. But the conversation, again, the conversation isn't around if the NFL would thrive. The NFL would thrive here. There's no question about it. But the conversation is more about money and what Ryan can afford and what Ryan wants to do. That's the conversation. So when you look at the Arctos thing and you look at where Ryan's at and what makes sense logically speaking, Major League Baseball and the NHL make perfect sense. I mean, again, $400 million is just not that's not a lot of money by sports owner standards. It's just not.
Now, $4.95 billion.
That's a ton of money.
That's
for
a ton of
anybody,
money,
dude.
That is a ton of money, and I just don't know. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting bits from Shams this morning that I think is of note. Shams says that the Denver Nuggets inquired with the Nets about acquiring Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
I think the Nuggets have the assets, that's for sure. I think the Nuggets definitely have players, but if I'm the Nets, I'm asking for Jokic, which is never going to happen.
No.
But that's what you have to ask for. So, I mean, they inquired. That means they probably called and asked what it would take. That's what that means.
Yeah, I think that could be interesting. But the other team that he says is new, Shams on The Athletic says, Durant is of interest to the Memphis Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Grizzlies have made new inquiries to the Nets about Durant. Memphis has 5 first-round draft picks available, 4 unprotected selections of its own, and 1 protected via Golden State to utilize in a trade, as well as young players like Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, Kennedy Chandler, and David Roddy.
Plus some guy named Ja Morant.
Well, and obviously Ja Morant and Kevin Durant are very close friends.
Yeah.
I think that's very well known. But I just don't know if you're Memphis, are you giving up the young core that you've built to trade for Kevin Durant?
Yeah, they're a team that I could easily see winning a championship if you had Kevin Durant. I mean, I think that defensively they're really good. I think Ja Morant's going to continue to grow. I mean, I wouldn't. When's the next time you're going to have, like after, Ja plays through his rookie deal and, does the extension and everything, how long is Ja Morant going to be on your team? I mean, when you're Memphis, those are questions you have to ask. I mean, again, we're seeing it with Donovan Mitchell. Teams like Memphis and Utah and Charlotte, like the smaller teams, have to ask that question, and I think that if I'm Memphis, what do you have to lose by going for it,
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think when I look at what the Nets have, I mean, if they bring this whole squad back to training camp, and I don't think they will. That's just my opinion. If the Nets show up at training camp, I can't imagine that they struggle in any way, shape, or form to win a championship. I mean, I look at how good they are right now. Durant, Kyrie, Ben Simmons.
Yeah, but
by the way, Ben Simmons is just about to be cleared to play 5-on-5. I don't know if anybody saw that over the weekend.
You know what I'm going to say, man? That's great. I'm happy he's progressing, but it's very simple with Ben Simmons, at least for me. Ben Simmons has to show that he's kind of a changed man, that when he gets on the floor, he performs. And again, I'm not even joking. When that moment comes in a big game and it's you and you've got the ball in your hand and you got to make a play, you got to show that you can make that play, know? And look, I understand. I'm very respectful of, the mental health portion of his game and what he's dealt with and the things he was going through. I get it, but again, that doesn't, like, we're going to talk about catfish later in the show and the Manti Te'o thing. Like, just because you're dealing with something doesn't mean that an NBA franchise or a player or whoever has to give you a pass on that. And that's just the world we live in. So the not dunking thing in Philly is still going to haunt Ben Simmons until he proves otherwise. So that's why I say it's great. I'm glad to hear that he's cleared and he's going to start playing. That's awesome. The league is better with Ben in it. But as far as championship teams are concerned, you got to show that you can go out and make the play. That's what has to happen here.
Yeah, and all I know is Kevin Durant better know what the hell he's doing.
Oh, for sure.
If he leaves, can you really tell me, talent-wise, and I mean just talent-wise, I understand that Steve Nash and all that other garbage is a mess, but can you really tell me that you're going to leave this team in Brooklyn and you're going to find a better situation? Because no matter where you go, they're going to have to give up a haul to get you.
Mm-hmm.
And my feeling is he's not going to win this coming season unless everybody comes back, because with Claxton and Mills and Joe Harris, like they actually have depth in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And, who knows? Maybe TJ Warren only plays 20 games again. But don't forget they signed TJ Warren. That cat can still play in this league. They have talent. And if your core three are Kyrie, KD, and Ben Simmons, and let's just assume the best. Let's for argument's sake, assume the best about the Brooklyn Nets. Tell me again that Kyrie, KD, and Ben Simmons, Nick Claxton, Joe Harris, like you look at the roster that they've put together there. Tell me again that team can't compete for a championship in this league.
Facts.
Come on. They're competing at the top of the East, right? I mean, they're on par. This group right now, this group's on par with Milwaukee. They're on par with Philadelphia.
Boston.
I think that, and now we find out that Boston, that Chaboy in Boston was playing with a broken wrist for a good part of the season. He had a fracture in that. Jason Tatum had a fracture in that wrist. I mean, come on. And this is what I say about the Knicks. I mean, even if it is, even if it's, let's say they center a package around Obi Toppin.
Right.
I mean, that's why I say the Knicks are not going to win a championship with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Even if, let's say Danny took 2 unprotected first-round picks, Obi Toppin, Evan Fournier. I'm telling you now, dude, they're not winning a championship.
Yeah, next question.
It's not going to happen. And Kevin Durant better know what he's doing. KD better know what he's doing.
Well, and I think, again, as we've talked about several times on the show, not new, like the legacy thing, I think is also very much in play. I think that, Kevin,
Absolutely.
I actually, I was thinking about this over the weekend. I actually think that there's a case to be made that him staying in Brooklyn and just seeing it out. And if Kevin Durant tomorrow were to come out and say, you know what? I messed this situation up. I'm going to play the rest of my contract out in Brooklyn. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be committed to the situation. I'm just going to play it out. I think the respect level for Kevin would go way up. And I think that Kevin would have a lot more to play for than he already does. And so that's why I say, you're right. Like the next team he goes to, it has to happen, or I think that Kevin will be regarded as a guy who, needed help to win and was a ring chaser and and again, we've talked all about the ring chasing thing, but I think that's his legacy right now. Hey, you needed Steph's help. You needed other guys to help you along the way. And I don't think Kevin realizes that right now.
But again, I will just say what I've said for several months. If you're the Jazz, how have you not called them? If you're Denver,
I have to think.
If you're Phoenix.
Dude, if Denver's calling, I have to think Danny at least called.
You'd have to. You have to. But I think everybody, the other week when he reiterated his trade demand to Joe Tsai 2 weeks ago, I guess it's been 2 full weeks now.
Yeah.
Since he
already
did that. I was told 20 teams called the New Jersey Nets, the Brooklyn Nets on Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
The 20 teams called. But again, on your point, you're not giving up Joker on that. There are very few teams in this league who can make that deal happen.
What Kevin
very
Durant
few
needs,
teams.
What Kevin Durant needs, if he is desperate to get out, is he needs time to continue to pass. He needs training camp to get here as fast as possible so that there's more pressure on the Nets so that they will take less. And I don't know, I think it's tough because I don't know that the Nets are ever going to take less. I think the Nets are perfectly fine having him forcing Kevin Durant's hand and making him sit out. I think they're fine with that.
Reed Holmberg says, good morning, fellas. Today is my 7-year anniversary. Wifey and I are going to Ruth's Chris for the first time. Any suggestions?
Well,
number one,
friend.
Go to the Ruth's Chris in Park City, number one. Number two, you can't go wrong. Now, I am a New York strip with 3 sautéed, not grilled, 3 sautéed shrimp on top of that. I'm a huge fan of that. But it just, the sides are all a la carte, and they are lovely. Now, you are a mac and cheese guy. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, you can't go wrong. If you go mushrooms and mashed potatoes, you can't go wrong.
Well, and I think the thing, real quick, on the mac and cheese, specifically at Ruth's Chris, is they do Chipotle mac and cheese, I think, right?
Yes.
So you can ask them to just make you regular mac and cheese, which I highly recommend. I think it's superior to the Chipotle stuff and all that. So I would be going, I'm with you, medium, New York strip, mashed potatoes.
Yeah, and medium.
Yeah.
Not well.
Not medium. Chewy hockey puck.
Red in the center, crusty top, medium.
Yes.
Medium.
Yes.
But be really specific when you order food at a place like Ruth's Chris. Mm-hmm. I love Ruth's Chris. We eat there probably too often. But I'm telling you now, when you go to Ruth's Chris, hold them accountable. You're paying probably $150, $200 for that meal. The steak's got to be perfect, and it will be. Trust me, it's going to come out on a platter. They'll cut it. You'll see.
Plates are super hot there, so they're going to say it a million times, but it's easy to forget your first time. When the plates come out, don't touch them. They will burn you.
Yes. Brother says yes, LOL, and congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations, Reed. Yes. Reed, congratulations.
Did you say it's 7-year anniversary?
7-year anniversary.
Yeah, congrats, dude.
For
That's
our guy,
awesome,
Reed
bro.
Holmberg.
That's awesome.
Reed, really good to see you this morning. I appreciate you being here. If you're just tuning into the show, welcome into the Monty Show right here. We're live every single day, 6:30 to, 9:30-ish. We don't really have
whenever
rules.
we want, because we don't have rules,
like
and it's,
we are live and local every day, right here on the Monty Show, live on YouTube. Big changes coming to the show over the next month or so. Make sure you stick around for that. Want to remind you, as we talk NBA this morning, the biggest stories in sports, this Donovan Mitchell update. The new details on Donovan Mitchell are just moments away. But I want to remind you that absolutely, positively, on a daily basis, this show is sending listeners to see BYU and Utah, or excuse me,
God!
that. BYU and Notre Dame in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium in the Shamrock Series, October 7th and 8th. Pretty simple. The only way to enter this contest is to go to Barbecue Pit Stop. Any of their 5 Barbecue Pit Stop locations, check them out online. Go to their website, bbqpitstop.com, bbqpitstop.com. They also have enter to win boxes on all of their counters. Go in there, please. Tell them, hey, we found you through the Monty Show. That's how this show works. We don't have a lot of advertisers because we don't want to inundate you with ads. But the advertisers we do bring to you, we need you to go there. We need you to call them. Go get your rubs, your spices, your sauces. Go get your Traeger Ironwood 885.
Hell yeah.
Jake made lovely wings on the Traeger last night. Hook it up at Barbecue Pit Stop, bbqpitstop.com. September 17th, BYU is at Oregon, Autzen Stadium, Eugene, Oregon. We are going to have a watch party at Barbecue Pit Stop in Lehigh. Okay, that's just about a little less than a month away now. We're going to have wings. Jake's going to make you some lovely wings on the smoker. We're going to have pizza. It's going to be amazing. We're going to watch the game. And then at halftime of BYU and Oregon, we are going to bring to you the winner of that trip. We are going to announce it. Come and join us September 17th, Barbecue Pit Stop in Lehigh. And it's all presented by our good friend Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage. I say it every day, and I'll say it every day. He is simply the best mortgage guy in the business. He's done 3 of my mortgages. And the number one question that I get about mortgages, oh, Monty, I can't afford a down payment. You keep talking about how there's homes available, and you keep talking about how the mortgage rates are low. Bro, I can't afford it. Yes, you can.
Devry Davis with the Davis Lending Team, powered by Academy Mortgage. All right, first-time homebuyers, listen up. This one's for you. There's a huge misconception on how much it takes to buy a house. Is it 20%? Is it 10%? Is it 15%? The answer will surprise you. There's 4 mortgages in the United States. 2 of them require no down payment. 2 require very minimal down payment. Out of that down payment, there's lots of places to get it from. There's state funds, county funds, city funds, lots of ways to buy a house, no money down. When I was 18, I got out of high school. I actually bought a brand new house, no money down. Never regretted it. If you have questions, give me a shout. Glad to walk you through it. Have a great one.
That's our guy, Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage, 801-543-9666, 801-543-9666. He's great.
Call him, bro.
You call him, you talk to him. You're dealing with him directly. You're not going into a farm or a call center. You're talking to Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage directly. And no matter where you listen to the show, no matter where in Utah you are, if you need a mortgage, if you have questions about a mortgage and you're in Poughkeepsie or Tacoma or your mom's house,
yeah,
call Devry Davis. He's got answers. 801-543-9666, NMLS number 278545. Devry Davis and Academy Mortgage are equal housing lenders. The biggest stories in sports this morning, very clearly, the latest updates on Donovan Mitchell. We've heard a lot of wild machinations about trades and what's been offered and what's not. But what we can tell you in certainty is that the Jazz and Knicks have continued to try and find a way to make a deal for Donovan Mitchell. Danny Ainge has not come off of his trade demands. We've reported this for the last 4 weeks. And that is that Danny Ainge is asking for 6 first-round picks and a package of young players that includes Quentin Grimes. We've also told you that from the beginning, the Knicks have offered Obi Toppin and a package of players. They are willing to include a guy like an Evan Fournier or a Cam Reddish to make this deal work financially. But Danny Ainge has made it very clear. I think he wants Grimes and McBride, and I think he is willing to build a package of players around them rather than the other way around. Danny Ainge is not going to compromise on that offer. And the latest updates that we got over the weekend, according to sources at the Utah Jazz, is that the Jazz and the Knicks are working to find a third team to facilitate this trade happening because the Knicks don't want to give up a ton to get Donovan Mitchell, and Danny Ainge is not going to lower his asking price. So a third team is going to be needed to make that happen. And we'll see if that's able to be pulled off. But I've also been told the most likely window for this to happen is around, between the 26th of August and the 1st of September. And I think a lot of that is because Patrick Beverley can be moved in a deal at that point.
Yeah.
So his money would absolutely, make a larger deal possible. I just don't simply think that you can pass up 6 first-round picks. But if the Knicks are only offering 4 picks, 2 first-round unprotected, that's just not a deal the Jazz are going to make.
Yeah.
So this morning, Shams has a new update on Kevin Durant, saying that the Memphis Grizzlies are the newest Western Conference team, according to Shams at The Athletic, to make a play for Kevin Durant. Man, I find that hard to believe, because the haul of talent that it would take to get Kevin Durant, if you're Memphis, just seems unattainable.
How is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean,
seems
it's a lot.
unattainable
It's a lot,
to
but
me.
but again, you have to keep Jaren Jackson Jr. and a couple of their other role players. I mean, that's like Dylan Brooks or those guys that are really impact players for them. Those are the guys you have to keep. I think that, again, I can't say this enough. If you're Memphis, you're trying to win a championship in this window that you have with Ja Morant. It's got to happen, or it's not going to happen for a long time. So I think they're going to go for it.
Yep. Mesh says, why are 6 draft picks so valuable? Because it's currency. Draft picks in the NBA buy you leverage. So if you're looking to acquire a marquee player such as a Donovan Mitchell, you're going to have to give up those draft picks to get him, right? So if you're trying to get Kevin Durant, you can take those 6 picks and turn them into Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So draft picks are what all rebuilding franchises want.
That's
and
every day.
when you are the Utah Jazz, look at the Rudy Gobert deal. I mean, you wind up with 5 picks, Walker Kessler, like Patrick Beverley. I mean, you get all this stuff, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, who, by the way, the other thing I heard over the weekend is that Jared Vanderbilt is the most in-demand Utah Jazz player.
I'm sure he is.
Well, I don't think Danny's going to trade him. I really don't.
No.
So my point is their currency, especially in the 2023 NBA draft, which is arguably the deepest draft we've seen in the last 10 years. So there's a lot of reason to believe that. All right, coming up, I want to get to this Cam Rising Heisman thing, but let's get some more of your comments. MY Jazz fan says draft picks are like currency in the NBA for trading, building, etc. Everyone wants them and needs them. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Strange Cloud says Saudi stooge.
Saudi stooge is what you're looking
Saudi
for.
stooge. Okay. There you go. K. Nurin says, yes, my game of the year, BYU and Notre Dame. Don't miss this one. Don't. Join us at Barbecue Pit
Telling
Stop.
you, man, the barbecue
Telling
pit
ya.
stop thing is going to be fire, literally. I mean, wings, pizza, like I also think it's going to be cool for a lot of people to get together. Like, we have people flying in. Like, it's going to be a big event.
It's going to be a can't miss. We're going to
Yeah.
do our
Yeah.
Football Saturday show be live from Barbecue Pit Stop. So we'll be doing a live show there. That's going to be great. We'll have a guest chair if you really feel so inclined. You can, sit next to Jake and he'll,
While I'm eating my flats, obviously.
Yeah, how about you being an idiot at the store the other day? Like trying to get flats instead of drums.
Hey, guys.
Like you're just, man, I don't know. Xavier Pena says the Knicks will be begging to give Toppin, Grimes, and 7 first-round picks for Spida when the season starts. I totally disagree with that.
No. Begging's a little extreme.
Yep. Top Junkie says, Jesse, KD will get a much bigger return package than Mitchell. I'm not a KD fan, just stating facts. Can Monty and Jake help? Who gets more in return, KD or Donovan Mitchell? Well,
I mean, this is not even a conversation.
I guess it depends on who the buyer is. Because I actually don't think you can say, well, KD's worth more draft picks than Donovan Mitchell, because here's the problem. You're only worth what somebody's willing to pay for you. And I actually think that Kevin Durant is damaged goods. I think Kevin Durant's a guy that has tremendous value around this league. But the issue is that Kevin Durant has hurt his reputation now. And I think it's been a bad look. Am I willing to give up 6 unprotected first-round picks to get Kevin Durant? No, I'm probably not. I'm not willing to give up 6 unprotected picks to get anybody. Now, is Donovan Mitchell worth 2 and Kevin Durant's worth 4? Probably. Is Kevin Durant a superior player? Absolutely. Does that mean somebody's going to pay more for Kevin Durant than Donovan Mitchell? No, absolutely not. It does not mean that.
Yeah, I think Kevin Durant's price is largely attached to Joe Tsai's willingness to let Kevin Durant twist in the wind while the season wears on. That's what I think his price is tied to. I think if Joe Tsai the owner of the Brooklyn Nets is willing to let Kevin sit out and be a malcontent, and Joe Tsai is essentially willing to do what Daryl Morey and the Sixers did, in that whole thing.
Right.
If he's willing to do that, the price for KD is going to be steep. But again, and we've had this conversation many times on the show, the price of a player is not what their numbers say the price is. The price is what the market dictates it at. So, Rudy Gobert, that haul that Danny got for Rudy, literally broke the league. And we have a video on the channel back on July 1st. If you go to the channel, sort it by date, go July 1st. I'm pretty sure there's a video there that says Danny Ainge broke the league, and he did, because he got all that return for Rudy Gobert that he never should have got. And so now, when we talk about prices, well, if you got that for Rudy, what are you getting for Don? What are you getting for KD? Well, KD's damaged goods. Don's not a championship player.
There you
so
go.
what is the price? That is the issue.
That is the issue. I agree with that 100%. Freezy Breezy.
Oh, so, dude.
Says if you don't have a set star young player with some good young talent, you're ruined. If you don't have picks, look at the Nets years ago. Yeah, totally agree.
Yep.
Freezy also says, Mitchell, if you're looking for a young talent, KD, if you're going for a chip, not right now. I think that's absolutely true.
Totally agree.
And that's why I say I don't know. Golden State doesn't have that kind of package, although, Kuminga and Wiseman.
But Golden State doesn't need it, though. That's the problem. That's what makes Golden State unique. They don't need you. They don't need Kevin. They just won without him. They don't need it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. G.O. Major comment dump. Hello. James Jensen says, I have to believe the Jazz sat down with Mitchell before all of this offseason mess.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, if you go back to our videos in December and January, the Jazz and Donovan Mitchell have a healthy communication.
Mm-hmm.
They are on the same page. And I think that has not changed. I think in their conversations, after the season ended, their conversations through the summer, I don't think that's changed in any way, shape, or form. So I would agree with that. Leonard Donan Endelove says, we back. What's up, LDN? Good to see you, my friend. Kanai Johnson says, just imagine KD and Ja. That would be deadly.
Yeah, but you can kind of see the potential of that. You can see, okay, if you have, again, Dylan Brooks is the most important part of the conversation. Ja Morant is Ja. He's always going to do what he does. You know what you're getting. But Dylan Brooks, the defensive prowess that Brooks brings, you have to retain him in a Durant deal. So, again, Ja Morant, Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant. Man, that's trippy.
That's close.
That's close, yeah. Morant and Durant. Jaren Jackson and Dylan Brooks. Those four guys, if you can have them on the same team, you're a championship team.
Yep. Rance says Brown is better than Mitchell. Which Brown?
I think
Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, Jaylen Brown.
No,
yeah.
I'm taking Don.
Wow.
The Donovan Mitchell with that group of talent is a better player than Jaylen Brown.
That's fair. That's fair.
To me, that's the conversation here. It's very difficult to compare. Donovan Mitchell has had a subpar roster around him pretty much his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you look at this Utah Jazz team was built around Rudy Gobert. And I think it makes it very difficult if you are Donovan Mitchell to thrive in that situation. I think when you look at Don, he's had Rudy Gobert and Bojan Bogdanovic.
Mike Conley.
If you look at Jaylen Brown, he's had Jason Tatum. He's had Marcus Smart. He's had guys around him that make him a better player. But if you look at Donovan Mitchell, who on the floor with Donovan Mitchell makes him a better player? Mike Conley, when he first got here, okay, I can buy into that. Last season's Mike Conley, he's a 3-and-D guy.
Donovan Mitchell ever get to play with Kyrie?
Yeah, but I think there's also something to that. There's also, it's the Boston Celtics. They have routinely pushed and improved and remade that roster.
Kemba Walker.
But I also think you're seeing now with Danny Ainge, and while Kemba and Kyrie didn't work out, you gave him the chance, right? You put talent around him. I look at Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge is doing that same thing right now.
Yeah.
So the question is going to be, is Donovan Mitchell going to be part of this team when training camp gets here?
I hope so, man. I truly hope so.
I think if he is, I think we're having a different conversation. There's no doubt about that. Josh Rodriguez says, Knicks fan here, don't expect a trade. Our front office is totally different now. We won't bite, and Ainge won't bite either. I think that's why we've heard reports that they're out looking for a third team. And I think that's exactly what I would be doing. Jesse P says, no way Mitchell is better than Jaylen Brown. Well,
Dude, I think I don't know if you're a stat guy or what you're basing that on, but I have to say I agree. If you put Donovan Mitchell in Jaylen Brown's situation, I think Donovan Mitchell surpasses Jaylen Brown, and I don't even think it's really that close.
And I'll just go back to what I've said about Don this summer. He looks amazing. He looks as healthy as I have ever seen him. I've never seen him have the bounce he has in his legs now.
Yeah, he looks rested is what he looks like. He looks strong. Like, I don't know if Don just didn't have the legs for it the past couple of seasons, or like what's kind of changed, or like what he did exactly, because it's not like we've seen him doing anything that's like outlandish or rocket science-esque, if you will. But he looks better. That's just not in question.
I think Donovan Mitchell is a better three-point shooter than people give him credit for. And I think Donovan Mitchell, if what we see on the court in this summer and these runs at Rucker and the Miami Pro-Am and the runs with Chris Brickley, if his mid-range game translates, forget it. I mean, he is.
I'm for real.
I'm telling you, he's top 5.
Yeah.
He's top 5 in the NBA, and I know I get a lot of heat on that, but he's top 5 in the NBA. Jesse P says Mitchell's another Carmelo Anthony situation waiting to
get the hell out of
wanting
here.
to play in New York.
No. That's not even that you're again, as the running joke on the show goes, with all due respect, in my opinion, that's an embarrassing comment. He's not even close to that.
I think Don is far more dynamic than Carmelo. And I think Donovan Mitchell is far more of a professional than Carmelo was when Carmelo was a Knick. I think that if Carmelo could go back, he'd handle that situation completely differently. I just have no doubt about that. Keith Turner says, we don't really know what Leon Rose offered for Donovan. Maybe he's the one that's trying to lowball Danny. I feel pretty good about what I've heard that Leon offered, and that is 2 first-round picks. Unprotected.
Which would be lowballing for sure.
I mean,
I want a discount.
I think that if Leon Rose had his way, he would trade. My guess is he would trade Obi Toppin, Evan Fournier, and 2 first-round picks for Don. And I just don't think that's a deal you make.
By the way, I actually think if everything is equal, that's actually a fair price. But the problem is everything isn't equal.
No.
The problem is Danny's never going to take that. Like, that's not even close to what Danny's asking
There's
for.
no value in that for the Jazz.
Yeah.
Look, let's say they're complete. They're trying to burn it down. They're desperate to trade Donovan Mitchell. 2 first-round picks, that's it?
Nah.
That's not going to work. You're not rebuilding with 2 first-round picks.
I'm going to say this again.
Right? What does Obi Toppin really bring you as a team that's rebuilding? He's going to wind up getting moved.
Yeah.
He's going to wind up getting moved. And Evan Fournier, you have no value in Evan Fournier. Like, that doesn't make sense. If you're a rebuilding team, I think the fair market value for Donovan Mitchell is 4 first-round picks that are unprotected and a guy like a Quentin Grimes. If I'm the Knicks, I'm never giving Grimes up. I think that highly of Quentin Grimes. From what I've seen and what people have, I thought he looked really good in summer. The knee looks fantastic. It looks fine. It's not an issue. Quentin Grimes looked really good in Vegas.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade him. You don't need, neither one of these teams needs this deal. It doesn't make the New York Knicks an Eastern Conference contender.
Nope.
It makes them a mid-table Eastern Conference team. They're not winning 50 games. And I think if you look at Milwaukee, Philly, the Bulls, like you look at the best teams in the East, those are all 50-win teams.
Miami, Boston, and Milwaukee.
I don't know if Miami's a 50-win team right now. I'm having trouble understanding what Pat Riley's trying to accomplish in Miami. I'm not they're good, they're not great. I think Boston has a chance to be elite. I don't know what Miami's got. I don't know how much Kyle Lowry has left in the tank. I don't know how long Jimmy Butler can play at the level he's playing at. There just is I'm not a Tyler Hero guy at all.
53 wins last year.
Yeah. And you still have, I think Duncan Robinson's still on that team. I mean, you're missing some things there.
Yeah.
That's a team that if you add Donovan Mitchell, now that becomes a team that can win the East.
The Miami Heat were 8-6 against teams above 500, so that kind of tells you what you need to know.
Yeah. They're good. They're not great.
Yeah.
Like Philly is great. I think
get down with Philly's great, dude. No, I have to disagree with that. Philly's not better than Miami, and Miami is good, not great.
Philly is far better than Miami.
No, well, we disagree then.
Philadelphia
we disagree.
But based on what are they not better?
Based
I
on
think,
Jimmy Butler is better than James Harden.
But you don't need Jimmy Butler to be. You don't need the Philadelphia 76ers were dysfunctional last year. I think we saw the hangover of that trade. You have a full summer. You have James Harden being selfless and giving away money to stay on the team. He clearly has dedicated himself. The guy looks really good in shape. I think Tyrese Maxey is going to have a year of years. I think Tyrese Maxey has a chance to be one of the best young players in this league. And I mean, he's a guy that could break out and become like, holy cow, where did this guy come from? He can be better than James Harden is right now. He can be the number 2 on that team. It's got to happen. But Joe has shown he can stay healthy now. I think Harden's going to be better. I don't know what to make of the group around those three, but man, I think they have a chance to be the best team in the East. Chris Middleton's breaking down, and guys that have played as much basketball as him now with a knee injury, like you really worry about his viability. The Bulls are not a better team. They're not a better team in my opinion. That's not a team where you're like, oh yeah, that's a better team. I don't see them as a better team. That's me. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Big Bucket Talks says Philly and Miami on the same slate. Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. Kurt Meyer says, how can you discount the Bucks? Because Giannis just had an MRI on his back. I don't know if anybody saw that. He's played a lot of basketball, and now he's playing the Euros. Chris Middleton's coming off of a significant injury that cost him a ton of time. I can question the Bucks.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Rant says Philly better than the Heat just got Melton too. Now have wings. And by the way, you have House on that team.
No,
and
it's just not. You're not. Listen, I'm not saying you're wrong about the roster. Yes, on paper they're better. I'm talking about when you're head to head in a big regular season game. You're really going to sit here and tell me you believe that Philly's going to win that game?
I do, because I think they're going to be better defensively.
Well, we'll see.
And I'm not a Tyler Hero guy. I think for Miami to win, like championship, like really be there, Tyler Hero's going to have to be unbelievable because he's still on the team. I mean, I'm talking current day today.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a chance they trade him. He's still on the team. By the way, let's not sell out Atlanta. DeJounte Murray, although I think he got his bag slapped over what he did to Banchero.
Yeah,
I think some people were not amused.
Yeah, he clearly changed his tune on that.
With what DeJounte Murray did to Paolo Banchero was not funny.
I don't think Philly's never won anything recently. They've never done any significant winning, even with having Harden and look, obviously Joel Embiid. That pretty much explains itself. I mean, the guy's a stud. There's no doubt.
How much do you think the Kawhi shot changed that franchise?
A lot. I mean, they were on track. They were on track for sure. But again, it's cold-blooded, and I'm not trying to be an asshole about it. But he did make that shot. Like you lost the game.
Yeah.
And that's just how sports goes. And I think that since then, that was obviously a huge moment in time for the Sixers franchise. But I'm not a believer in James Harden. I don't believe in the guy. You have never won anywhere you've been. And in the clutch moments when you had your opportunity, you went 0 for 27. And no, I'm not letting that go because that was one of the biggest moments of his career, and he did nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And James has not been healthy for 3 years now. I mean, he's got to show, and it looks like he has. I mean, he was out of shape, let's be honest.
Yeah.
When he was in Brooklyn, he was out of shape. But you can see now that James Harden body is back.
And I'm glad to see it. I am. The potential for him to have a big year is definitely there. I mean, he's showing all the right signs. The less money thing you talked about, like, great. Everything's there. But again, I need to see him roll up in a game of consequence and go 6 of 8 from 3 and put up like 45 points and just dominate the game. I got to see that out of him to start believing that they're better than the Heat in playoff time because the Heat have shown me. Not this past year.
Well, that's true.
But the year before.
The Heat have shown. And I think Jimmy's shown that he can be that dude.
I mean, Jimmy's going to show up. I mean, I agree with you. Tyler Hero's been incredibly inconsistent, and that's what leads to them not going far enough.
And they're just not Philly has not been good enough defensively, and I think they will be. Let's see. Ruggs89 New York says Obi is Leon's first draft pick. Grimes, RJ, and Obi are off the table. I can tell you that's just not the case.
Yeah.
That's not the case. I mean, the Jazz and Knicks have talked about all three of those players. I think 2 weeks ago, Leon said, I'm not trading Grimes. I think he would trade Obi Toppin today to get Donovan Mitchell. He would do that deal today. I think he would trade RJ Barrett today to get Donovan Mitchell. I think absolutely he would do that. And I don't think you can fault him. And this goes back to go back and watch the show on Friday when we talked about how loyal fans are to their teams. Mm-hmm. I think Knicks fans are far too loyal to RJ Barrett. Far too loyal. I'm telling you. Let's see. Jesse P says Boston isn't winning a championship with Tatum being the centerpiece. Well,
Bro,
we've debated that on this show as well. And this is the Devin Booker conversation. Can Devin Booker be the best player on a championship team?
He hasn't shown it yet.
He hasn't shown it yet. Jason Tatum didn't show it.
Dude, Jason Tatum's the one thing Tatum has going for him is his teams have been there regularly.
Right.
That's both his greatest asset and his greatest, knock. Hey, you've had this is the LeBron conversation. You've been to the finals 10 times and only won 4. You're a 40% winner right now. So is it greatness to get there 10 times and lose 6 out of 10 times?
Well,
or is that a bigger failure? I don't know. I think it depends how you look at it. So, for Jason Tatum, I can't, Jesse, your comment there, I don't necessarily disagree that Tatum hasn't done enough winning, but what I can tell you is Tatum's been there, regularly. Tatum has, we all remember, youngin' Jason Tatum dunking on LeBron and the chest bump, and, they end up losing, but that was one of his best moments. We all remember Jason Tatum, going through these playoffs and being Mr. Clutch, and then everyone criticizing him for not being clutch. When you get to that point and people are criticizing you for not showing up or having a bad game, yeah, I think you've arrived. I think people know that you've got the goods. So can he win or can he not win? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But I can tell you, I would damn sure rather have Jason Tatum than James Harden. I'd rather have Jason Tatum than Jimmy Butler right now. I would. I would take him over those two guys for sure. And I think, Jason Tatum's only going up. And dude, I just that when, you watch guys and you're like, yeah, Jason Tatum's going to win eventually. I think obviously he's going to win a championship. I don't think anyone doubts that. So I don't know, man. I guess I disagree, but I think it really just comes down to how you view, that the whole success versus failure thing. Getting there and not winning, is that success or is that failure?
That's failure.
You know what I mean?
That's failure. And would you rather get there? I mean, would you rather get there and lose than not have got there at all? Well, yeah,
sure. And this is the Devin Booker thing. Hey, you got to the finals and you lost. And then, and the problem for Book is that you got shellacked out of the postseason. And in this crap about DeAndre Ayton and using him as an excuse and him being, a malcontent, not that Book leaned on that, but I feel like as an organization, that's kind of the narrative in Phoenix right now. Well, DeAndre Ayton was a malcontent and bench issues, and, they just weren't, together when they were playing Dallas, and that's why they lost by 10 points, right? No, you lost by 50 points. That's my problem right now with Book. I don't doubt that the guy is a killer. I don't doubt that he's one of the best players in the league, but you got to set the record straight here.
I think that Devin Booker is a guy that I obviously am a huge Book fan. But he's that guy who will go off for 60 points in December and 16 points in June. And I need 30-point Book in the playoffs. I need 40% from 3 from Book in the playoffs. Is that difficult to do? Sure it is. But the best players in the league do it.
Yep.
If you're truly, that Mamba mentality, you'll do that.
Yeah.
Is Jason Tatum that guy? I don't know. Of the young players in the league right now, I still think that Devin Booker is the best player. But somebody's coming for that ass, right? And by the way, I would mention to all of our Phoenix listeners, because I know we have a big following there, this might be the last ride.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, how many years does Chris Paul have left? I don't know. I honestly don't know how much time Chris Paul has left. I think it's really interesting to kind of contemplate that. Like Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, like you can ride with those guys.
Yeah.
Chris Paul is the glue that holds that team together.
Yeah, and I think that Chris Paul is, he is aging, no doubt about it. He's been water's wet, and Chris Paul's hurt guy. That's been the narrative about his career, and he's never won.
And that hasn't changed, by the way. That has not changed in Phoenix.
Nope.
Because Chris Paul has been hurt in Phoenix. He's had these broken hands and
like little
that
stuff.
hasn't changed.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
who
like
he is.
all I'm saying is the East is open for business. If you want to win, go all in and win now. Trading for Donovan Mitchell doesn't do that. Just a couple more. Luka Doncic from CAA Mafia. Luka will have a better career than both Tatum and Booker.
Yeah, I mean, I already think his career trajectory is higher. I think he's the thing Luka's got going for him is that he's in Dallas and everyone thinks that he carries them. That's that in the narrative is, hey, Luka's carried you and you just haven't had enough to get over the hump because the NBA is no longer a one guy on a team can carry you league. So that's what Luka has going for him. But again, Luka's I can make the case that Luka's an improvement year as well. No more Jalen Brunson to help you, bro. Like what are you gonna be? You've got Christian Wood now. Like you've got some players. Like what does that look like? I don't know, but I'm just telling you, Luka has been playing in huge games his entire life.
Yes.
The big game thing doesn't faze him at all, and that's why he's able to have fun with it. Like I give Luka a lot of credit in that Phoenix series when they were down. He was like, "Hey, it's easy to talk junk when you're ahead. Let's see what it is when the series flips." I thought that was a pretty telling moment in his career. Now he is petty as hell.
Phoenix is very perplexing. Is it the owner or is it the player's fault? Like if Devin Booker is on Boston and Tatum's on Phoenix, does Boston win a championship this year? I don't know because they're not in those different positions. But I just feel like Boston has a superior team.
Yeah,
and they didn't win.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is on Jalen and Jason Tatum.
Well, a lot of it is Steph's greatness. Steph doing stuff.
Game four. Boston should have won that series. It was there for the taking, and you let it slip through your fingers. I'm not taking anything away from what Golden State did. Clay was dead on his feet. Draymond Green was terrible. You had that series won. You did your job until you didn't do your job. You didn't execute. And if you're not going to consistently execute in the NBA Finals, you're going to lose. You got out-executed by a more experienced team with a better head coach. And their star player was better than your star player. Plain and simple.
Facts.
The stupidity of the turnovers alone talked about experience.
Yeah.
Let's see. MI Jazz fan says Luka is a one-man band. He's a black hole. This is a really good point.
Yep.
This is a really good point. Great players and get buckets, but better career is what respects. Statistics, then yes. Success, then no. I think we're going to find out about Jalen Brunson in New York. Because you give the ball to Luka, it's never coming out.
Mm-hmm.
It's never coming out. And I think when you look at, like Chris Stapps, didn't show us anything in Washington. Porzingis has been overrated his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
What is Jalen Brunson? Is Jalen Brunson a better, more dynamic player outside of Dallas without Luka than I think he is? Than he was in Dallas? I think he is. I absolutely think he is.
We'll see.
Antonio Ruiz says Booker Mitch. I'm taking Devin Booker every day.
Booker who?
Donovan Mitchell.
Oh.
Devin Booker.
I think you got to take Devin Booker.
But if Don comes back the way I think he's coming
I do have to say, Don did put up 55, I think it was, or 57 in the bubble in a big playoff game against Denver. Like, he's shown he can do it.
And how'd that end up?
Yeah, they lost.
Jesse P says Luka's biggest challenge is staying in shape. It is. JP Shanahan says, what did I miss? A lot.
Fat.
A lot. Let's see. CAA Mafia. If Spida was 2 inches taller, he'd be the best shooting guard in the... Well, he's not.
Yeah, that's the thing, dude. He's not.
He's not. And he still can be. He still can be. So, Freezy Breezy says 100-plus turnovers. Truth. H-Money821 says Brunson will be good anywhere he's a point guard.
Well, and he knows how to use his body. That's the thing I think he's got going for him. He really knows how to be physical with guys, which I think in the NBA is kind of a lost art. But I think it's a big change when you go from playing with a superstar the caliber of Luka Doncic to playing, again, not hating on RJ, but like that level of player. That's definitely a step down, and I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll see. Rance says don't sleep on the Nuggets. I agree. Ruggs89 New York says I can guarantee you that Tibbs is going to trade Obi. Who said that? Who said that? Tibbs, and by the way, it's not Tibbs' team to trade anybody.
Yeah.
No source. Obi is Leon's guy. He's untouchable. Okay. Well, keep rolling with that. That's cool. Well, maybe you're right. I could be wrong. Leighton Griffith says Knicks are going to regret the day they trade RJ Barrett. Can Mitchell handle the NYC media pressure?
Well, that's a fair question.
I think he can. There's no doubt about that. Kenai Johnson, Brunson bullied Booker after he got called soft. Did he, though? Did he? I don't think he bullied.
I think he answered it, but I don't know that he bullied him.
I wouldn't say he bullied him.